Mm, For many, the best way to get Western lifestyles was to move west. Over one quarter of the East Germans aged 18 to 30 did so, two-thirds of them women. Rural parts of the East were especially affected, as towns and villages emptied and tax revenue slumped. The schools were closed, shops shuttered, and housing blocks demolished. The mass emigration of youngsters led to plummeting number of births. Since 2017, net east-west migration has been roughly zero, but there has been no growth in the number of people moving east. The westward exodus has simply fallen to match it. The East is also much older than the West. Since 1990, the number of over 60s there has increased by 1.3 million, even as the overall population has fallen by 2.2 million. IWH, a research outfit in Halle, thinks the working age population in the East will fall by more than a third by 2060. By 2035, 23 of Germany's 401 Kreise, the administrative district, will have shrunk by at least a fifth, says Susan Danner at the Berlin Institute for Population and Development. All of them are in the East. In some districts, there will be 4 funerals for every birth. Instead of losing people to the West, Eastern Germany will lose them to grave. The constitutional pledge of equivalent living conditions across Germany thus looks unattainable. The government tried to help so-called structurally weak regions in the East as well as the West. But although the investment in infrastructure or technical universities may help some towns, it cannot stop the demographic decline in the many East German regions. The picture is much brighter in some eastern cities. Potsdam, Jena, and Dresden have clusters of industry and tourism, as well as cheap housing. Some, like Leipzig to irritated rockers, have been booming for years. The Bacon Belt around Berlin benefits from the success of the capital, especially as older workers move out to the suburbs. Yet even as overall emigration to the west dries up, eastern cities are sucking educated people away from already struggling small towns and villages. That trend may continue, as only half of East German workers work in city, compared with 3/4 in the West. The changes in the East have social, cultural, and political consequences, which are now coming to the fore. Last February, thousands of Dynamo Dresden supporters at the away game in Hamburg began an unfamiliar chant, Ost, Ost, Ostdeutschland. A video of episode went viral, sparking lively debate. Were the fans expressing a dubious Eastern variant of militant German nationalism, or was this cheerful reappropriate the identity that for so long was taken to connote stupidity and close-mindedness? Identity is the key to understanding East Germany, says Franziska Schubert, a thoughtful Green who represented Gaulish in Saxony's state parliament. Fully 47% of East Germans says they identify as Easterners before Germans, a far higher proportion than the European movement of reunification. The equivalent is true for 22% of Westerners. Regional identity is hardly abnormal in Germany, asked the Bavarians, but in the East, it can seem grounded in politics as much as culture or tradition. When Jana Hansel, a writer, recently gave a talk to a school in her hometown of Leipzig, she was astonished to find herself spending half an hour fielding questions from teenagers about the Oshquater, a proposal to give Eastern Germans preference in public jobs. More than 25 years after end of the GDR, students have become East German again. She says, if we are not careful, we'll lose another generation. The AfD has exploited the power of Eastern particularism. Under slogans like East Rises Up, the party has scored 20% plus in Eastern state elections, most recently in Thuringia on October 27th. There, and in recent election in Brandenburg and Saxony, it was only voters over 60 whose supporters for the established parties ensures that the AfD did not come first. In Saxony and Thuringia, the AfD the most popular party among the under 30s. This is worrying in the part of the country where extremism has found fertile ground. More than half of Germany's hate crimes take place in the East, though it has just 20% of population and few migrants. But Eastern identity is not the exclusive preserve of extremes. Many young Easterners simply developed OC identity after encountering ignorance or scorn in the West. Nor need it be only negative. The Matthias Project, a former Brandenburg primer, now in charge of commission for the 70th anniversary of reunification, says that the recent election in his state was the worst tempered ever. Nonetheless, he hopes for the emergence in the East of healthy self-confidence built on back of success stories, and a new focus on many problems that span East and West. His commission's informal motto, he says, is as little state celebration as necessary, as much discussion as possible. And since Berlin Wall has gone, no amount of debate will land anyone in jail.